Do you know how stress is really affecting your life and your body? Well, stay tuned and find out if you may be suffering from adrenal fatigue. Thanks again for tuning in to Second Act TV. We're here in our studio, and Paige Valdiserri is back joining us again. Paige, I'm so glad you're here, stayed over.
Here again.
We can't get you to leave, can we? We're laughing because we've had some great bonding time and had a conversation yesterday that actually prompted our discussion today.
Yes.
Was kind of describing how I can't think right now. We're trying to prepare for an interview, my brain fog, lots of stuff which I've been attributing to menopause. And you said to me, have you ever had your adrenal glands checked? And no. What are the adrenal glands? What do they do? And what is adrenal fatigue?
So we'll start off slow with
what
our adrenals are.
Try to process.
Our adrenals sit on our kidneys, and they're about the shape of a walnut, and they weigh less than a grape. So you wouldn't think that something that small and that weighs that least could be that powerful. Mm-hmm. But what people don't realize is how important the adrenals are to everyday life. Now, I have to say that I'm not a medical doctor, but through my personal experience, my experience with my patients and clients, working with integrative doctors, and being a caregiver for my husband, I've learned so much about this. And I can tell you that Dr. James Wilson was, I think, the first person who really came out and did a lot of research about adrenal fatigue. Mm-hmm. So these small glands that sit on top of our kidneys function our stress level. And these adrenals don't know the difference between good stress or bad stress, so they fire all the time. So here we are midlife. We've had all this time, and think about all the different stressors that's happened, your life-changing events that happen, even fun, active things that happen in your life.
Because still stress.
Yes, because if I said to you, Silka, guess what? I have free first-class tickets to go to New Zealand, because we talked about that yesterday, but we have to leave tomorrow. You would be stressed.
Oh, stressed, totally stressed.
Right, because there's so many things that you have to get done and get packed. The adrenals are firing just the same as if I come in and said, Silka, so-and-so, who you knew just died yesterday. So they don't know the difference between good and bad stress. So they fire the same way. So by the time we get to middle age, our adrenals are taxed. And for some of us, more than others. For me, my adrenals are my Achilles heel. I've always had adrenal fatigue because of the climate that I grew up in. My environment was emotionally, physically difficult in many different ways, which we've talked about before. So for me, my adrenals were getting taxed very young.
With these adrenal glands, and unless we're aware of that, we attribute a lot of illness perhaps to something, or we look somewhere where there is no answer. Exactly. So how do you test the adrenal glands?
Yeah.
How do most doctors do that? How do you initiate that sort of treatment?
What I have found is you're going to find it more with an Eastern, holistic, integrative doctor more than a strict Western doctor. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple different ways. You can do it by blood. You also do it by spit test. And yes, I said spit test, where you have vials and you spit at different times throughout the day and the evening because it's tracking what your cortisol levels are.
Yeah, I've heard about that. They test hormones like that too sometimes.
Yes.
Other than blood. Yeah.
And there's a direct connection between if you have adrenal fatigue or if your adrenals are really, laxing, as we as women get into perimenopause and menopause, what's supposed to help us during that time is strong adrenals. I don't know about you, but for all of the women that I have worked with, have been my clients, patients, and even myself, by the time we get to this point with the life that we're in right now, the adrenals are very weak. So if they're weak, they're not going to be there to help us transition over to the phase of menopause. So that can really complicate our symptoms, our signs, our hormone levels, all of it.
Well, now you automatically ask me about, Silka, do you know if you have you checked your adrenal glands? When I mentioned fatigue, brain fog, what are some other symptoms of adrenal fatigue that our viewers might
Okay.
Oh, that's me.
Okay, so if you have a difficult time waking up in the morning, and I mean without coffee, if you really don't wake up until about 9 or 10 o'clock, that can be a sign. If come around, midday, you have
Meaning
that.
you're awake, but you're not awake.
You're not, you're awake. You're physically, you've woken up, but
Yes,
you're not
you just
really
can't.
awake and present.
Gotcha.
And I stress without coffee, because believe it or not, caffeine and coffee are the worst things for adrenal. Worst things.
Interesting.
So that's one thing. If middle of the afternoon between like the 2 to 4 slump, that's another sign. If you're craving, salty and sweet together, that's another sign. If after you eat your dinner, you start to get energy back, that's another sign for adrenal fatigue. If you're waking up at different times of the night, that could be another sign as well. If you have difficulty remembering where your keys were, or if you washed your hair 2 days ago, or where you put a piece of paper, that could really be adrenal fatigue. But
We all have that. That's something we're everybody says, well, that's just normal aging. That's just, that's.
Which it can be part of that process,
But we don't even,
But unless you check the adrenals, you don't know. And the interesting part about the adrenals is, the old saying, steal from Peter to give to Paul. If your adrenals get so fatigued, it might have been because of what I've done in the world, the trauma that I've worked with. What happens is the brain, it'll talk to the brain, and the brain will say, okay, today, this is what you need to remember. You need to remember this, this, and this for your job. But as far as where you put your keys or where you put X, Y, and Z, that's not the important parts. So the brain and the adrenals speak to each other about this is what you need to remember today. The stuff that's really not that important, let's just put on the back burner. And then that can keep continuing. And lethargy, if you're really fatigued, and it doesn't matter if you're eating multiple times during the day, if you're still really fatigued and you just feel like you're just drained, that's another sign of adrenal fatigue.
Well, I bet a lot of people say yes. That's,
of course.
and just thinking that that's normal, and it's not normal.
No, and there are other symptoms too, lifestyles. Worst things are having to eat processed food. Processed food, not good for you. Caffeine, coffee, chocolate.
Even cocoa or the high cacao?
Like the raw cacao. I'm not sure about that one. I just know like the
let's not
regular
rule that one out
chocolate.
yet.
Tell me about it.
Okay.
So another thing is look at your lifestyle. If you're a single parent, you are a candidate for adrenal fatigue.
Stress.
If you move to another state, if you move to another country and you have no support systems, that's one. If you're a caregiver, that's adrenal fatigue. If you have been working in a career or a job that you just don't like, or you're having a lot of tension or problems at work, that's another thing. So basically what you're seeing a theme of is stress.
Well,
Cumulative stress
stress,
that you keep continuing to have. And again, each person's body is different. So for me, my adrenals have always been weak. So as I've aged and I've had, life-changing events, different traumas, illness is a big thing too, that's taxed my adrenals. So I've had to make sure that I support my adrenals 110% every day.
So if like our viewers are, oh gosh, this is me, but I really don't know a doctor right away, I don't know how to get tested, but can we take some action to what can we do to see if perhaps we can turn this around? Is there a lifestyle change, eating change?
Sure.
What are your recommendations there? I know you're not giving medical advice.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So, again, if you want to get them checked, you can go to an integrative holistic doctor, and also who does them is holistic chiropractors.
Okay.
So you can get spit tests done there as well. But in the meantime, you got to stay away from the processed foods. I know people love their coffee, so what I tell them is, all right, let's wean you. Do half decaf, half straight. Do that for a couple weeks, and then wean down. In the middle of the afternoon, when people start to feel that slump, they'll grab the Red Bull, the energy drinks. Those are horrible for your adrenals.
Yeah, that I know.
Yeah, very bad. And I've met so many people, especially my first responders, who, they work out hard and they have fatigued adrenals. And what I say to them is, working out hard is the worst thing you can do for adrenals. If you want to exercise, it's walking, it's low, what's the word I'm trying to say?
Low intensity cardio?
Yes, thank you. Low intensity cardio, doing mild yoga, the meditation, because you have to remember, if you're constantly stressing this out and you go into the gym and you're pumping iron and you're running or playing tennis for 8 hours a day.
I know people like that.
So do I. So you have to really be careful. So if you do that, your adrenals are going, excuse me, the only way that I'm going to get your attention is to start to fatigue more and more, and different parts of the body will start to break down.
That's really interesting.
There's also a connection between how the adrenals walk with the thyroid gland. So if you have thyroid issues, you should also be looking at the adrenals. So if there's anyone out there who has, hyperthyroid or hypo, then also get your adrenals tested as well.
That's really, really interesting. I mean, you've provided some clarity for me.
Oh, good, I hope.
No, I really appreciate it. I want to talk more about this and some other ways of dealing with stress, on another segment. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get you to stay over since we can't get rid of you.
Yes. Yes, I will be here.
Yeah. And we will be, to get in contact with Paige directly, as always, we will have her information on our site and in our YouTube description. And we invite you to stay tuned to another segment of Second Act TV. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found today's segment helpful. For more videos with Paige, you can click on the link that's right next to me or visit our website for more information. Also, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Button's right here. Thank you.